Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? This is Preach Jacobs with the Worthy Cause podcast for the arena. I have an amazing guest in this building, and by this building I mean my house. So thank you.
Pretty cool.
Well, thank you. So thank you for you coming in here.
Sure.
You guys may know this young lady as Heather Bauer, who's South Carolina House of Representatives for District 75. But prior to that, I've known her as an advocate for the arts, the creative community, and just all things that are just dope and cool in Columbia. And I'm excited because we wanted to be able to get someone involved in the community, involved in the political sphere, to talk to us. But more than that, I wanted to have an opportunity for us to just have a conversation for the public to get to know you on a personal level. Because when I see you all dressed up and looking professional, I was just like, wow, okay, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, all right,
that
cool.
Was not how I used to dress. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But I think that's important, right? I think that you know. When I talk to people about like politics, and I think that we have this misunderstanding that we think politics is this big magical creature, but I'm like, at the core, politics is people, right? Yeah. And it should be somebody's in the community. They think that, hey, if I'm living here, I'm making a decision to live here, I want to make things better. Let me try to figure some stuff out, right? So I would say, just kind of a background. Do you remember? And tell me what this was for specifically. There was a song that I did for a short film that you were in. Do you remember this?
Oh, I think that was the 40-hour film festival.
Yes.
And we won actually best soundtrack.
Oh, really?
I don't know if I even told you that.
I didn't know that. This was like, what, 15 years ago?
This was like 15 years ago. So I got my master's in media arts. And I think it was late one night. We were filming an art bar, former art bar. And it was this crazy... script, and we needed the script ain't great, but we need great sound. So I think we asked you to make something real quick.
Yes.
And you did it like in an hour.
I had this song. I had to find it. I never delete any emails. So I could probably find it. I think the song was called Crown and Ginger Ale.
Wow,
and it was,
remember that?
and it was because I totally made it as an extreme parody. And so it was like, what's it, Crown and Ginger Ale? It was something that totally doesn't sound like me. But it was kind of like, being playful for what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I remember at some point in this short film, do you remember what the premise of the story was?
Oh, I think it was something about it was a lady falling off the back of a truck driving through a cornfield, which was me. And I was like throwing my body off the back of a truck. It was some horror timeline.
Okay.
Some horror thing. Yeah. I can't even remember it was not good. Soundtrack, great. So thank you.
Okay. Well, I would say, from a creative perspective, I think that one of the things that people always wonder and think, they think that like the creative community and the political community are always separated. And I don't think so. I think that if you're an artist and you're trying to encourage people to buy some of your work, you're involved in politics. You're involved in communicating with people and asking them, hey, could you spare some of your money for this? Hey, can you invest in local artists? So I would say, coming from a creative background, I say creative background. So tell me your first love before you got involved in politics. Diet-ish.
Ish. Yeah. But I'd also say, before I explain that, but politics is also, to have creative solutions, means being creative. So, and I can talk about a little bit like how I've kind of made my way my first 2 years, but I was not handed anything, and I had to kind of make my own way and be creative with how I get things done.
What we were saying before the cameras were rolling, I have this thesis in my brain where anytime you're in South Carolina and you do things creative or you do things in the community, I'm coming from a hip hop music perspective. Everyone's always telling me, move out of South Carolina, go somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. And I decided to stay here. And I stay here for a multitude of reasons. Family, I have a sister that's special needs that make me feel like I need to be closer to. But when you make the decision to be here, I say that deciding to stay here is a revolutionary act. And so you get to the point where you're like, damn it, I'm here. But right after that, it's like, now what? And I think deciding to get involved in the political sphere is your now what. So my question is, what was the thing that made you say, fuck it, let's do it?
You know, I guess I'd always grew up with politics in my life. I didn't really know it. Like growing up, I was raised by a single mother of 5. We were raised on food stamps, HUD. We moved around a lot. Boxes of government food on my front porch. So I relied on government a lot. I just didn't know it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I always had, I think there was a balance between, you know, needing that and also, you know, working hard to get beyond that. And I think that's where a lot of we lose sight, you know, our governor is saying, like, we can't give out food anymore to people. They need to go back to work. Like, that's, there has to be a balance between the two.
Yeah.
And so having been raised by that, I want to see government do what they're supposed to do. And what really prompted that was really 2016. And we can get between, you know, my childhood and how the heck I got the gall to do that. But 2016 happened. That person was elected president. I couldn't believe, no one could believe it.
Could not fucking believe it.
Could not believe it. I was like, this is a joke. This is, I'm losing.
Yeah.
And I remember a very visceral moment. I was in the shower. I was crying. And I said, we have a president who can say he grabs women by the crotch.
Yeah.
I just remember that coming out and being like, oh my God, that video or that recording of him saying that. And then, you know, I'm like, well, I can't run for president, but what I can do is start looking to see what's going on in my local community. So I started going to rallies. I started going into community events. And then I had a mentor of mine call me like, hey, Heather, like, I know you're toying with running for office. You know, there's this seat, you know, that you live in District 75. This is back in 2018, really, is when the wheels started turning. And I had been involved with other things throughout that time, of course, but I was like, you know what? Like, I am more than educated. I'm more educated than he is. I have more community experience than he does. I know the people better. I've never seen him at a community event, ever. Why not? Like, we deserve better than that.
Yeah.
And then I saw some of the votes he was taking or not taking on common sense gun laws, abortion, any of the tough stuff he walked on or made really bad votes. And I was like, that's not who we are in District 75. And it turns out eventually, you know, I had to try a few times, but turns out I was right. And they wanted better, and I hopefully am giving them better now.
So I know that a lot of the things that you were talking about, you know, you were focusing on education, infrastructure, abortion, which, you know, what's going on with abortion laws is absolutely insane. And not just with the Supreme Court, but allowing like states to kind of make these decisions and seeing like a lot of these things get repealed. I'm also, here's something that I'm interested in seeing what you think about this, because this feels really, really odd to me. So we're talking about, you know, gun laws as well. Usually, theoretically, right, if you have a state with a Republican governor, they're usually lockstep with whatever law enforcement entity is there, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that this gun law, this very, very thing that got extremely lax, and then you're hearing people like Leon Lott saying, yo, we don't like it,
That's right? That's right. Our sheriff does not want it.
Why is this happening? Like, there's never a situation where I felt like people having easier access to guns, so I feel safer, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, and again, you know, I'm a gun owner, but there was something about, hey man, if you're getting a CWP, you go through training, you do this and this and that, and this law's like, nah, you can just have it. Like, what are your thoughts on these gun laws? What could you suggest as far as people that get so outlandish about it, where they're thinking that if you want some type of common sense laws or common sense like checks, people automatically think you're going to bust into houses and take them. Like, what are some of your things that you're hearing? What are some of the things you're thinking on gun laws as well? Or how do you feel about this particular one that's happening in South Carolina?
Well, for one, you're right. Our sheriff does not want that. The police chief does not want that. We don't know if someone's walking across a school yard, we don't know if that's a good guy or a bad guy. For instance, Senator Margie Bright Matthews, just this week on the House floor, she brought up the constitutional carry, which the names they name these things are also troubling. But she mentioned in Colleton County, they basically shut down a festival in her district because there were these two guys walking around, you know, I imagine them doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know.
Oh yeah, we see it. Yeah.
You know, with the guns exposed, and everyone's like, wait a second. Like, it's very, it takes you back, and it puts everybody on edge, and no one in law enforcement is for this. Money.
Yeah. I mean,
money. If our attorney general, his family is in the gun manufacturing business. I mean, if you follow the money, the main gentleman who pushed the bill, Rep. Bobby Cox. I mean, he works for Sig Sauer. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the largest gun manufacturers. I mean, so if you just follow the money, and then also just national rhetoric. If you hear, like, I'm on the House floor a lot of times, and I try to watch different news outlets just to hear what other people are saying.
About it. What
people are saying.
Yeah.
And so I'll be on the House floor. They'll be debating like something like constitutional carry, and I was like, no shit. They just said that on Fox News this morning.
Yeah.
You know, they follow the lead.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you see nationally is coming down into state houses, and even with my predecessor, I mean, he sent out a mailer about like the Mexico border.
Like, we in South Carolina.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You know, just the rhetoric is, or union, like the union thing.
Yeah.
Our governor said, we're going to go to the gates of hell fighting against unions. I'm like, where are all the unions in South Carolina?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, money, and that's where just follow the money when it comes to things like that. And what I see, at least.
I think that what you said that really, really hit the nail on the head was that, you know, after 2016, one of the things that I ended up seeing, and I heard a lot, was that you started to see a lot of young people deciding to run for something, right? And more than that, a lot of young people decided to run for something that historically, or they might not have thought they wanted to do it, right?
Yeah.
But things got such out of control that people like, I need to be able to do something. And so a lot of times when there's like national rhetoric, right, where I think that any policy or anybody being motivated to vote out of fear is never a good reason. And so what you're saying about the Border Patrol stuff, and it's like, it feels like this jargon to scare people to the polls.
Absolutely.
But with local politics, I think is very, very important, is that your feet are on the ground, your hands are on the ground. So
right.
what are you hearing from your district and from the community here of the things that they're more interested in as well? I read the essay that you wrote about the energy bill that's trying to be passed right now.
Yeah.
And I know personally for a fact that, you know, those are things that are real tangible to me that impact me on a regular basis. So
yeah.
I would say, tell us about this bill that's trying to be passed, your opposition towards it, and other things that you're hearing local people that's in your district and in the community, what they're talking about.
The energy bill is definitely one of them. And this bill was presented in the House, H5118, and you start remembering like barcodes on things. I don't know, it's very strange. You start remembering bill numbers, but this bill is very eerily similar to VC Summer.
Okay.
If you remember that debacle, we're still paying for it.
I was about to say they were gonna build it, nothing. There was never a job that came out of it.
Never a job, not 1 ounce of energy, and we are literally still paying for it on our bills.
Yeah.
Okay. So this bill was similarly structured. So I went to my office. I'm like, listen, can we meet, Dominion? Mm-hmm. So I had my stack. The bill is like 60 pages long or more. And so I had this list of questions. I'm going through the bill, and he's like, I don't know why that's in there. I don't even know what that means. I don't know who put that in there. So not only do they not understand what they're writing, the main benefactor of this, Dominion, had no clue, or they thought half of it was stupid. Like he would say, this is stupid. Like I was writing on the bill as he was talking. Yeah. And I was like, are you sure?
So can I quote you on it?
So I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
And people were laughing in the room. I was like, no, like I need you to say that, because what you're trying to force down the throats of ratepayers in this state, you don't even know what it means. Mm-hmm. And we have some of the highest rates in the whole country.
Why is that?
Because we're paying for things like VC Summer. We're paying for, I'm sure there's other things that I could get into with why we're paying such high rates, but that's a huge issue, and this would only raise it more. And then the other article I sent you last night that just came out a couple days ago was about laying the pipes in the in the state. So you know, you have a gas plant, they want to build this huge thing, and then you need pipes to go to it. So one of our big issues, one thing I really fought for in the House is that in this bill as it stands is they could take a lot of the right of way from people. So people's personal property, especially going through rural communities. They tweaked it a little bit. It's a little bit better, but it still doesn't guarantee people their own property.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it. But my biggest issue was that, one, they did not address the long-term, you know, other ways to get electricity to our state. Wind, solar, things like that.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I was in the elevator with the Speaker of the House, and I had tweeted about it, and he was like, "Oh, Heather, you just want to put solar panels up everywhere, don't you?" I was like,
"What's wrong with that?"
I was like, "Well, interesting. I actually didn't mention solar panels in my op-ed that I wrote, but are you reading my tweets?" Like, I kind of gave it back to him, and he didn't like that. But my thing is, like, their emergency should not be put on to South Carolinians.
Yeah.
And they've known this has been an issue. Our population has been growing for years. They have known this is to be an issue. And now they're like trying to force this down our throats. And it's not going to employ more than 30 people. There's no timeline. They have no budget. And we have no idea how much of it's going to
And I think that's the biggest thing, right? It's like, listen, I've been involved in the arts community. And part of that goes from, you know, being in a situation where I'm a creative to applying for grants to, hey, now I'm on a board to, not necessarily a board, but I'm on committees where people are asking for grants. I'm looking at their proposals and things like that. Yeah. And just to give a little bit amount of money, you got to be like, yo, this is how I'm going to use this. This is how I plan to do it. This is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it'd be like $1,000, right?
Right. For sure.
You know? And so for these entities to be like, you know, I don't know when we're going to do that. Who knows? You know,
blank check. It's a blank check.
Yeah, and that's disappointing. And here's what I think that ends up happening is that what I come across a lot of times is that the average person isn't very well involved in politics. And I don't think that's an insult. I think that their jobs are, it's like, listen, if I go to a mechanic, I don't have to know all that shit under the hood.
Yeah.
If I trust you to take care of my car.
That's right.
I'm going to you for this.
That's right.
And then when you're fleeced, then you start feeling like, well, damn, I can't trust you now, right?
Yeah.
Politics is the same way, where I think that the public is like, look, I don't know all the details. I don't know, like you're saying, these house numbers and stuff like that, like it's a paint color at Lowe's or something like that. You know, your bill HPP 225,
it's a sick disease I have.
But you're supposed to do that,
right.
and the community is supposed to trust it, and so a lot of those things just really, really frustrate me because I think that a lot of times, you know, in the political sphere, people are like, politicians are like, hey, don't worry about this, I got you. And then the people kind of just blindly trust how they've been voting before or not really deep diving into it. And so the thing that I always think that should be a bipartisan thing is how we treat education and kids. And the things that always drive me crazy is that I feel like a lot of times when we're looking at any of those statistics about, you know, the bottom states with the education in this country, South Carolina is usually at the bottom, or we're number one in the worst. I mean, you know, however you want to look at it. You know, right. You know, and one of the things that really, really drive me crazy is that there was something on 60 Minutes that came out a few months ago about this huge push on book bans and stuff like that. And there was a school, like I think in, oh my gosh, was this? It wasn't Charleston. It was in Beaufort, South Carolina, where it became a part of this story of these parents getting involved, where there was this huge push to take away these books. Yeah,
Moms for Liberty.
Yeah, and I'm like, why is there more push on? It doesn't make sense that South Carolina will get lax on like gun laws and push on books, where the biggest detriment to children's safety is guns. Right?
This is the number one killer of kids in our state.
Yes.
Is guns.
And so when we're talking about education, what are the things are you hearing that you're fighting on? And not just gun safety for kids and kids being more safe, but what about when kids are in the school? Like, you know, I would hear people tell me about, hey, man, there's still kids that go to school that don't eat. You know, what are some of the things that you're hearing from the community that you're working towards, that you're thinking about with education? Because I know, like, children and working with education is a part of your platform as well.
Yeah. So going back to your first point, you're completely right. And why I got, I guess, angry enough to run to begin with was that we should be able to sleep at night knowing that our politicians are doing what is in our best interests. And they often don't. And so when I was going door to door to tell the constituents of District 75, like, hey, did you know that your current representative is voting to ban abortion? They had no idea. They were like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm like, yes, here are the votes. Here you go. Bam, 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 bam. And so it took a lot of education because they just, they're busy. People are busy. They're living their lives. They're trying to get their kids here and there. They're working a couple jobs probably. So, so yes. And you also only know what to work on, like education, if you're in the community. And so by going to neighborhood meetings, by visiting schools, going to community events, you learn, at least you should, if you're listening, what matters most to your constituents. I have been in the middle of working on local issues in my district regarding the school district. Did I ever think I would be? Absolutely not. But when I start getting hundreds of calls about what is happening, I think I have the responsibility to do something about it. There is a major push nationwide and in our state to slowly siphon public dollars away to private schools. Last year they passed a voucher bill. I say they, the Republicans, they passed a voucher bill to give, it was a very specific group within a certain salary, a lower salary, to give them a stipend to be able to go to pay for a private school. But if you look at the numbers, I think it was like $3,000, something like that, or $4,000. That won't even touch the surface of what it would cost to send your kids. So this is only benefiting people who can already send their kids to private schools. Then you look at rural South Carolina, there are no private schools in a lot of these counties. So you're driving 2 counties over.
Listen, my family is from Bamberg and Eastover.
There you go.
There's no private school there. So. I mean, listen, and I think that you hit the nail on the head as far as the rural areas. I never forget, I was working with the Museum of Art, and we were working on this program to get a library in the Eastover area. And in Columbia proper standards, this library was very tiny. But the excitement that this community had for a library, right? And we say kids don't read. I mean, these kids lost their shit over this, right? And you hear people in the Eastover talking about the importance of I wish I can get internet. I wish I can get this right. And so a lot of times I feel like rural areas are ignored a lot of times when these conversations come up. And I think that someone told me this, it's kind of cynical, but I asked a political figure years ago who's not from South Carolina, but I was just like, why is it that anytime there's policy that goes out, the first group of people that seems like they get snubbed are children? And this guy said, with the bourbon in his hand, maybe he was a little too much in the trust tree. He says, dog, we can shit on kids because kids can't vote. Right?
They use them as a political pawn.
Yeah, absolutely. When it's convenient, we go, hey,
We see that a lot at the State House. I mean, particularly with the voucher bill. So the voucher bill that passed last year was actually supposed to be a pilot program. They haven't even got the pilot program going, and then they passed another voucher bill this year. And it was to extend the salary so you could be making well over $100,000 and still get this money. And they increase, I believe, the amount of money that you can get. And I wanted to articulate why I'm working so hard in my local community I'm like, listen, you need to step up your game and do better, because we are giving Republicans every reason to take money away from our public schools if we are not doing at least the minimum. We have kids in my district, downtown Columbia, in the capital city, in the most well-funded district in the entire state. Majority of kids, they're not ready for even the military or trade school. We have to do better. So by us not meeting our baseline and doing our job, we're giving Republicans every reason to say, well, look, you're not doing a good job, So we have to be good stewards of money. We have to do a good job. We have to teach our kids, and then also feed them. The summer feeding program that the governor signed on with 14 or 13 other governors across the country to not apply for this very tiny tiny amount of money. I think it was maybe $200,000 it would require for us to facilitate this, to feed kids in the summertime. This happened during COVID. It was very successful. The governor says that we should, the kids better pick themselves up by the bootstraps. And,
learn some discipline, kids.
Learn some discipline, kids. Parents are on your own. Parents in rural communities that, work 2 or 3 jobs, have to drive a long ways to go grocery shop, whatever. They may not even have a car.
Yeah.
How do we get these kids food? So a group of us, Democrats, we went up to D.C. to talk to the White House and we're listening, can you extend the deadline? Will you work, if we can put pressure on the governor to apply for this money, would you accept South Carolina to implement this program? And they were like, yes, we can. So we went back, we're like, listen, governor, they are willing to accept us. We will put the money let's get the money in the budget. We know we can. Let's help the kids. But it was a political stunt. He said no. And the deadline has since passed. So we did not opt into that program.
Well, listen, one of the things that I've learned as an artist is that we are by default community organizers, right? Like if we're doing a show and we're trying to encourage people, or if we're crowdsourcing to, if I'm going to put vinyl out and it costs $5,000, I'm basically asking my creative friends to help me get money to get this, whatever. That is somebody running a political campaign, even though it's in a creative district. More off camera, I want to talk and see what we can do community-wise to do something to link in. I have partners that own restaurants. So what can we do to kind of feed kids during the summer? Because a lot of times I think that there was this theory that sometimes you have to shame people into doing the right thing, right?
100%.
And a lot of times I think that if we can kind of help organize some stuff to kind of I don't know, make you look fucking bad that you're not doing something about this. I don't know. But I think that it's terrible that kids fall under the wayside for that.
That's a lot. That's how you get a lot of stuff done, is through, if you look at some of the work I've been able to do and what I've been in the news, it's all about, it's press releases, it's op-eds, it's being on camera. I mean, it's a marketing program. I went to school for media arts. So I'm like, this is all paying off a little bit.
Right. This is what I wasn't expecting this. But
I was not expecting it to be politics, but that's literally what it is to push. And I say an agenda, but feed the kids. You have to work every angle.
So I'm wondering, South Carolina is now the primary state for Democrats, and the same thesis I asked at the beginning about, hey, if you decide to stay in South Carolina, decide to run. I'm always interested in people's why. And this is what I want to do with this pod. The why. Why did you run? Why did you stay? Whatever. Why do you think South Carolina's become an important hub for Democrats for these future elections?
Well, like you, I never thought I'd stay here.
Yeah, right.
I came here in 2007 for graduate school.
Where are you from originally?
Rural Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Middle of nowhere, Amish country. I'm not Amish. People think that. But raised in rural Pennsylvania, first to go to school in my family. Was actually going to go into the military.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to go in the military because no one had gone. I had no idea how to apply for school or GED. My guidance counselor, and I love her, Cindy Shank. I see her once in a while when she drives through to Florida to do community work down there. But she was also my volleyball coach. So she edited a video of me playing different clips and stuff. I didn't even know. She sent it to a bunch of schools in Pennsylvania. I got a call, and it was from Indiana University of Pennsylvania outside of Pittsburgh, a large D2 school. And the coach was like, hey, Heather, you're pretty good. Are you going to play in school? Would love to talk to you about it. I was like, what? No, I wasn't going to the Army. I don't even know how to do that. He's like, well, we'll help you. So I applied, took the GED. Is it GED? No. Yes, GED.
The GED.
Yeah. Gosh, it was awful. And then did that, and then I moved here in 2007. And what I found about the reason why I stayed, and I came here to study art history, and then my thesis advisor she left literally in the middle of the night. Her office was empty, and that's a whole other story. But then I was interning with Betsy Newman at ETV at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Good old Betsy.
Betsy Newman, I learned so much about the history of South Carolina, and that's really when I learned our history in our state. And I was from a majority white town, rural Pennsylvania, and she very much was like, Heather, this is why it's like this. I'm like, oh. And once you see things, you can't unsee it, at least for me. And so I started getting more involved in the community, working at nonprofits, Harvest Hope, and the museum, and just running Artista Vista, and just doing cool things in the community. And like you, I was like, listen, if I'm going to live here, I want to make it better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also could never have moved to like New York City and done this.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I was poor. I moved with everything I had owned in my Chevy Cavalier with no AC.
Yeah.
And you know, here I was.
A Cavalier. That's fucking hilarious.
Chevy Cavalier, no AC, and so it was a place where I had opportunity to do things. Also, there was a lot of opportunity to fix things. And I'm kind of a fixer. That can be bad, but but I did realize that, you know, I could make an impact here. So that's why I stayed. And why I'm also a Democrat, I believe in the values of the Democratic Party, and I think it's hugely exciting for us to be first in the nation. It's really about getting eyes on what our values are, what we believe in. And also brings money into races like mine that are really important. It's about money. It's about highlighting Democrats like myself who are doing the work. And I think that's why it's so important.
Yeah, I think it's important. And I feel like people say this all the time. And, you know, they always say, oh, it's the biggest election in your life. And again, I'm a huge proponent of
I know.
your local involvement in the community impacts people on a day-to-day basis on like heavily. Every once in a while, national stuff really gets weird and very, very important. I saw this the other day and it drove me fucking crazy. I was reading One of These Days in Court with Trump, and there was a situation where he's violating a gag order by going on his social media network talking about the case. Now, anytime he violates it, they're fining him like $1,000. He had like 8 or 9 violations. So the court is like, we'll charge you $9,000, but to him, it's more important to pay the $9,000 to get this word across. So the court was threatening him, like, yo, since this money isn't an issue, we can send you to jail. And then I started reading in this article about the logistics if he goes to jail, how is Secret Service gonna wrap their heads around this? And I'm reading it, and it's such a casually written article that I'm like, are we at a place that we're fucking reading about ex-president, future, Republican nominee? We're just casually talking about, oh, how would the Secret Service handle the jail situation? We're so desensitized by a lot of the stuff that's going on that I do feel that this is one of those times that nationally things are really, 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 really uncomfortable. So, so in a trust tree moment, I had this theory that I felt like this year started off with like this Cat Williams interview where he just goes in and he just like,
I saw that.
He just spews on everybody. And so this whole, so everybody's upset, everybody's fucking angry, everybody's stressed out.
Yeah.
In regards of that type of energy, I say to myself, are we okay? Are we going to be all right? So 2 questions that I have are, how terrified are you? And if you are, we're in Trust Tree, where do you find your pockets of hope, whether it's on a local level and a national level, of how the average person can see this and be like, all right, what can I do to be involved or to help?
First of all, I saw Cat Williams when he was here. He was hilarious.
Really?
Yes,
How tall is he? You're probably taller. You're taller than everybody. You're taller than me, but he has to be like really, 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 really short.
I know. Well, I wasn't that close. I was in the nosebleed, but he looked tiny on stage. But I don't know. I know he's a short guy, but I was like,
listen, I don't want him cussing me out. Preach Jacobs to that motherfucking podcast. We can bring the network. They can kiss my ass. You know what? He might need that.
If you got Cat watching this,
see you
later.
You know what?
You're on your way.
By the way, Cat, come here next.
Yes,
come here next.
We'll have a
booster
pod.
chair for you. Anyways.
It's a scary time. What I have learned in my short time, and really that 2016 election really flipped the switch. That made the unspoken spoken, and that what I'm finding in being intimately involved in politics and just listening to my colleagues, being a lawmaker, is that a lot of politics, it's a lot of gray area. You can't possibly legislate and write out every single thing. So let's use like abortion, for example. Not every woman's the same. Not every pregnancy is the same. There could be multiple different issues if a woman gets pregnant and she has complications, but that may not be listed out specifically in the law. So therefore, she couldn't get an abortion. Whether she could be dying and she can't get an abortion.
Which, by the way, when you're talking about when you were growing up and you depended on government and you didn't know that, my theory has always been when the community isn't in a position to protect themselves, take care of themselves, or have issues, the government, that's when they step in, right? And so what ends up happening with this whole idea of, go back to states' laws. If we went back to the states' rights for certain things, South Carolina probably would still be segregated, right? And so what we're seeing now with abortion not having the national protection, places like Arizona are resubmitting abortion laws from 1864. Right.
Yes. That is really control. It's control, and I fear that we have lost our morals and ethics, and we have separated ourselves. We have not separated our own personal beliefs and religion or whatever from making law for the entire state.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that are these extreme evangelical Christians in the state house who believe I should be wearing a skirt down to my ankles, saying yes sir, and having 20 kids.
Yeah.
Like, for real. I mean, they want that. They want pure women. They want innocent girls. And they say that as much. I get more preaching on the state house floor than I do at church.
Yeah.
So, and I fear there's such a little separation. I'm like, don't push your own values. You don't even know if I'm Christian. What if I'm Hindu? What if I'm Buddhist? Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I got in kind of a back and forth with a Democrat in the district last election because he reached out to me. He was like, "Hey, Heather, do you think that the Ten Commandments should be on school walls?" And I said, "No,
No, absolutely not.
Not unless you include every other religions or none at all."
Yeah.
So we're losing our way with like gray area, and this is a perfect example of him sitting like, how are we going to handle this? We never had a president in jail before.
Yeah.
Like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
At some point, you have to be the bigger person, and people are so afraid of getting reelected, even in our own party. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, say something.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild. It is scary, but I busted out my Nope. I have a Nope yard sign with the hair. I pulled that out yesterday. I'm like, it's about time to put this back up.
Yeah, I think it's ready. I mean, I'm nervous. I'm terrified. Like, that 2016 feeling doesn't go away. I would say this, and this is what I think is important. I think this is why I enjoy having this talk with you. Is that I wrote an essay as soon as after the election in 2016, and I had a list of things. Like, my goal was to figure out what are some practical things that people can do to help in the community. And one of the things that I said, because a lot of times when you feel like it's overwhelming or overbearing, we just kind of say fuck it.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was really important was that I said, hey man, one of the biggest things that happened in 2016 is that there was an attack on news media where, if he says fake news in this blanket statement, what ended up happening was that blanket statement created all this vitriol to people in the community that report on things that's going on, or people that cover your stuff, whether it's arts, culture, politics, things that are fucked up that's going on. Like, anytime there's something that gets national attention, there are local reporters in that community that's making that happen. And so one of the things that I was really, really, really focused on pushing is telling people, like, hey, if you appreciate the press in your community, invest in the publications that you love. So, and one of the things that we talked about with the arena was that, I did an interview with Tyler, and he was just basically like, I don't want this to feel like a competition with the other publications. He's like, I want this to feel like we're working together with this, because you can't have too many reporters out in the streets trying to get information, trying to help out. And I think that when there was attack on reporters or reporting, and let's be clear, when there's certain policies that go out, it's an attack on the community. There needs to be more people involved to have more opportunities, and just like this situation, to have your voice amplified, to hear it and see it. Because sometimes you can't get all your shit across in a 700-word essay. You know what I mean? So sometimes you need, sometimes you need to sit and just vent for 30 minutes. So I would say, if there's some parting thoughts, when we're talking about young people that are debating about whether or not to get involved politically, I would say two things. What advice would you give someone that might be on the fence about running for something? And what advice would you give somebody that says, I want to be involved in the community, civically, politically? How can I help other than just going to a voting booth?
Well, voting is very important. And we had some of the lowest turnout, a couple years ago across the state. So voting does matter.
Do you think that low number happens on a national scale because we believe that it's going to turn red anyway?
I think there's some of that. I also think that, in our state, unlike other Western states like Washington State, Oregon, like they get packets of every candidate running for office in their mailbox. Oh, wow. With a ballot right there.
Oh, wow. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. But, I mean, they are on record. There's this great book called Flag and the Cross. And they go into the history of kind of where we are now when it comes to, like, evangelical Christians and things like that. Yeah. But they are on record verbally saying they don't want us to vote.
Really?
They don't want Democrats to vote. They don't want black people to vote, because we typically vote Democratic. So they don't want us to vote. So there's this push, like in Georgia, other state, like Stacey Abrams fought so hard to, suppress votes. I have a shirt that says unsuppress the vote, unsuppress the vote. But in our state, it does matter. And I try to tell people, whether it's, helping run your neighborhood association, whether it's helping write, you can help a campaign with someone you believe in, you can run for office yourself. I say that you're probably smarter than a lot of the people I work with. So you should just do it. You should just do it. And your voice is important. And, when I first decided to run, like, I was questioned, like, well, who's your mom and dad? Where are you from? Like, what do what makes you think that you should run for office? I was literally asked those questions. Wow. And, I kind of have a chip on my shoulder. I always have a chip on my shoulder a little bit, because, it gives me kind of like, don't tell me what to do. But your voice is important. Your perspective is important, because if we have all the same kind of people making laws, we're going to have the same results. So you have to have different opinions. That's why representation matters so much. Yeah. So you should do it.
I definitely agree with that. And again, I'm an advocate of telling people that you can find ways to be civically involved, and there might be ways that you might not even know that you're being civically engaging, So I think that I think that's really, really important. I think South Carolina is happy to have you. Your district is happy, or lucky to have you as well. And I'm glad you came in here and talked to us. And I think that, I'm looking forward to us doing more stuff and figuring out ways to find creative solutions for this, right? So, like, we're talking about the food program. That was a Black Panther tactic. You know what I mean? That was something where that was started on the West Coast, and it forced national intervention, because if you had Hoover with the FBI, who's like anti-Black Panthers, he's like, I can't have this group doing something, and people look at them and saying, how are they doing this, and the government isn't doing it. So sometimes we have to like do stuff to not only shame, but you got to show people how it's done. And I'm glad that you're out here in the trenches on a gloomy Saturday, out in the streets and talking to me about this. So anything that you need, please let me know.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Just like a rapper giving out a mixtape or something like that. Any like final drops you want to give before you get out?
Well, I am up for re-election this year. We're up for re-election every 2 years, so it's kind of you're always campaigning at the State House. So would love support. My predecessor is running against me. He has a primary, a MAGA, Mums for Liberty, Trumper person. So anything you can do to help support, keep a good Democrat who's using their voice to make a difference, would love their help. And also register to vote. Yeah. Get involved however you see fit. Everyone's voice matters.
Absolutely. And side note, talking about being civically engaged, I finding another reason to get people to register to vote. Someone said this, and I thought this was really, really interesting. They said that when you look at something like jury duty, everybody hates jury duty. Everybody's like, oh, I want to get out of this or whatever. But when you look at a Trayvon Martin case or things like that happens when we see like miscarriages of justice, in my mind, when I see stuff like this, I say, oh, wow, if Black and brown people are historically treated differently in the justice system, then if I have an opportunity to be, a juror, I need to embrace that because maybe I can have a voice in that. You can't be involved in jury duty if you're not registered to vote. So to me, I want to find like real tangible things that I can tell people in the community like, yo, like you need to embrace the idea that if you get an opportunity and you see somebody on that stand and you can hear something that maybe the prosecution or maybe other people in the jury don't hear, that's something that I think is a civic duty as well. So I just say get involved. I want people to get involved. And what's your Instagram handle and all that good stuff?
I believe it is Heather Bauer for SC, or Heather Bauer SC. Twitter, I'm BMBR Bauer, short for Bomber Bauer. That was my nickname in college. I used to be able to hit the ball really hard.
Why you don't have logos for your campaign, like merch or whatever? Like you have to have this.
I've been repping the same logo from the beginning.
Yo, we need to get you. That's such a dope name.
We gotta do better. Yeah, Bomber Bauer. That's a good one.
You go into the State House and be like, oh, the bomber's coming. You gotta scare these motherfuckers. Like that's what you need to do.
Listen, they know I do karate, so they're like, there was almost a fist fight my first week on the floor.
You buried the lead. We should have started with this.
So there was almost a fist fight on the floor. They were started yelling, and then they had Sergeant Arms had to come and like hold someone back. And I kid you not, all the guys were like, Heather, protect us. I was like, you go do it yourself, man. I'm not protecting you.
No.
They're running behind me.
So what's your first move? You just gonna hit somebody in the throat or kick them in the knee?
No, run away.
Oh, okay. All right. Good answer.
Yeah, karate is like, we're a very defensive sport. We're not trying, there's no first strike in karate.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. That's the goal. We're not trying to inflict harm, but if we have to, we can.
Look at that. All right. So
Sensei will be very happy with me.
So the arena, the next podcast we're going to have coming up. We're going to have, all right, favorite martial arts movie?
Oh, gosh. Kill Bill.
Okay. Part 1 or part 2?
I've only seen part 1 because I was too scared to watch part 2. No, I've seen them both. I take that back.
Okay.
So part 1, I was terrified. That's considered a martial art movie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Terrifying, but badass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, side note, I do this partnership with the Nickelodeon, and I do this thing where it's called Mobile Soul Cinema, where I have like films that incorporate, it's black films and black music, and I play music beforehand. So the next one we're gonna do, we're doing Black Dynamite. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh my God, we gotta see it. All right.
By the way, I'm the vice president of the Nickelodeon Theater Board.
Look how that stuff kind of this time. Look at this. We should have started with this.
We didn't even know. It's kind of been like this for the past 15 years.
Yo, that is
which is really cool. But no, let me know what it is.
Well, I'm giving you tickets to it. So Black Dynamite is a combination of, it's kind of like a parody of black exploitation movies in the 70s. Michael Jai White, who's actually a martial arts consultant on Kill Bill.
Oh, okay.
He's the main character on it. Yeah, the movie is absolutely hilarious. And I have an affinity for black exploitation movies because the movies weren't great. If you look at these old black exploitation movies, they weren't great, but it was a community trying to figure shit out. So that was the first time you saw like black grips and black directors and black producers trying to figure this out. So there's a black exploitation movie called The Mac, which on the surface, these movies aren't great. Shaft isn't great, Mac isn't great, but they have a place in my heart. There's a part in the Mac where one of the characters is standing up out of anger, and while he's talking, there's a fucking boom mic that's in the shot, right? Right. You know, and so I love stuff like that because you're looking in real time at people trying to figure it out. And so Black Dynamite kind of like pays homage to those really crappy blaxploitation films, also a kung fu film. It is so amazing, and the soundtrack is amazing. You're getting tickets to this. You're coming to
love
this.
It.
Right.
My second favorite movie, not that you asked, but would be Princess Bride. With the sword fight.
Yes.
You've killed my father. Prepare to die.
Yes. Okay. You know what? I think it'd be dope. I think we should do something with the film series for you, where you can you could curate something where you pick like some of your favorite movies and why.
Yeah.
All right.
That'd be fun.
All right.
Okay.
We need to talk. I need to be your consultant for campaign stuff. Anyways, once again, we want to thank Heather Bauer, South Carolina House Representatives for District 75. I am Preach Jacobs. I am your host for the Worthy Cause podcast for the Arena Network. I want to thank our producer and camera guy, Andrew Gajadar, who his name doesn't sound like that. It's Andrew Gajadar. He's amazing. He came here last minute to help us out. And so you guys see all these like amazing camera angles and all that good stuff. Thank him, because this shit would have just been me with with an iPhone or something doing this, and this would have looked terrible. So thank you guys so much. This is the Worthy Cause podcast. I am Preach Jacobs. I'll see y'all soon. Peace.